It's that time of the year where Adobe release all of their new updates for their products. And today we're going to be going through everything that's new and that's been updated for Adobe Lightroom Classic. And I'm going to start right now. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, if you didn't know, every October, Adobe has their Adobe Max keynote in a city, and this year it was in Miami. And what they do is they basically release a whole bunch of updates for basically every app they make. And today what we're going to be doing is focusing on Adobe Lightroom Classic. And it's being updated from 13.0, which was 2023, to Adobe Lightroom Classic 14.0. So the update was released, I believe, about 2 days ago. So make sure to go ahead and update your Lightroom Classic. You might also need to update your computer, which is what I had to do, to run the latest software. And it has a few new features which we're going to be talking about in the video. Okay, so the very first feature and the highlight feature that they really promoted was the new generative remove. Now, you might be thinking, James, they've already added that. Well, yes, they did, but it was in early access. Now, early access for Adobe usually means it might not work, it might work, you know, it's in this beta stage basically, but now it's actually fully been added into Lightroom. So you can see beforehand, it just said early access, where now it doesn't actually have that. So to actually use this new tool, all you'll need to do is go over to the develop panel. You'll see you've got this little eraser tool, and you usually always have these three little icons. So for example, you've got your clone tool, spot healing brush tool, and then obviously we've got our new generative AI. But underneath that, you've also got this brand new button, which has been brought to 14.0, and this is detect objects. Now, this is a photo I've taken in Arches National Park. So what I'll do is go ahead and zoom in. You can see I've got some people here, which are kind of ruining the landscape shot for me, especially this person here that was sitting there for literally the entire time I was trying to photograph the sunset, which I always find quite funny. But all you'll need to do now is simply click, and what it'll do is it will automatically select that person for you. Now, it may take several minutes, just I'm finding it running a little bit slow, but I'm sure that's just a little bug thing that they'll fix immediately, because again, this is a brand new update. And then what you can do is underneath, you've obviously got your detect objects. So you can add to your mask, and you can also now subtract to your mask. So it's a little bit easier to actually mask out and remove distractions and objects from your photo. So what I'm gonna do is just go ahead, just select all the people, change the size of my brush, select the people in the background here as well. So go ahead, select all of that. I think that's all the people removed. And then simply go ahead and click remove. Now, something I have also noticed is it does run a little bit faster as well. And I'm sure over time, once everyone's updated it and they fix a few little bug fixes, which I'm sure will appear in this Lightroom, then again, it will run even faster. But I must say, I think it's running around 20-ish, 25% faster than the 13.0 version versus the 14.0. So as you can see, those people have now been removed. And again, just like the 13.0 version, the early access, we've got 3 variations which we can select, and they look all pretty good to me. But yeah, the big upgrade to Lightroom this year is going to be generative remove has now been officially added to Lightroom Classic as well as we've now got that detect object. So if you go ahead and turn that on, it's very similar to the object mask tool. If you've ever used that, it will just work out what shape. So if you want to remove a person or a building or maybe a spot or blemish, it's going to find those areas and find those shapes a little bit easier to select. So it's an easier way to select the object to remove, and it's a little bit quicker and a little bit more successful at removing those objects. So that's going to be the biggest update to Lightroom Classic in 14.0, but they have updated a few other things as well. Now, the next big update you'll see in Lightroom Classic is content credentials, and this is going to appear basically all over Adobe's programs, from Illustrator to InDesign to Photoshop and Lightroom Classic. Now, to find it where it will be, so let's say we've got this image, I want to go ahead and export it now, so I'm going to right click, go down to where you can see it says export, and you will see it is now here, and this is our, again, early access content credentials. Now, if you've ever posted a photo to some kind of award ceremony or anything like that, and they judge your photography, then this is going to be really helpful for you. Basically, it includes your name, your kind of digital signature built with inside your photo, as well as any changes that you've made. So this is kind of a good way to spot if your photo has or hasn't been adapted using AI. So it's going to be a good way for judges and competitions to be able to work out what is a real photo and what isn't a real photo. And like I was saying, this is going to appear all over Adobe. So if you're someone that enters a lot of competitions with their photography and you really want to say like, this is definitely AI or this definitely isn't AI, or what you've actually done to your photo, like for example, generative remove, that obviously uses AI, the judges will be able to spot what has and hasn't been done by this particular content credentials. Now, you can add it in a variety of ways, like for example, you can attach it to file or publish content credentials to cloud or attach publish. But I'm just going to go ahead and click attach to cloud, and you can see what it will add. So edits and activity, obviously that will include anything that you've done to the photo, as well as, for example, me. I can add myself to it. So who am I and what and all sorts. So yeah, if you want to do a little bit more information, I'll link the actual page of what Adobe specifically clarify what it will do in the link in the description. This is going to be really, really handy to combat the amount of AI that's out there, and to really show people what is true and what isn't. And that's really important in a mis and disinformation world like we live right now. Now, they've also added a bunch of smaller updates as well. Most notably, they've included add denoise to linear raw DNG files. So this will support the following DNG formats, and it will end up, hopefully it'll end up with a sharper and cleaner image. You can see you've got a very long list on there from basically every camera brand I've ever shot with, from Apple, Samsung, Canon, Nikon, Sony, the list goes on and on, including Fuji. So if you're someone that ends up with a lot of kind of blurry images because you're shooting at really high ISOs, this will hopefully mean you end up with cleaner, sharper images, which is really nice. They've also optimized tethering support for Nikon cameras. So if you're someone that tethers their camera to their computer, also uses Lightroom Classic and shoots on a Nikon, I know that's a very specific person, very niche, but I'm sure there's someone out there that does that, then this is going to be optimized for you, which is really, really nice. I've done it a few times, but I'm not someone that usually tethers their camera to their computer. But if you do, this is going to be a worthwhile upgrade, as well as they've added a few more newer cameras and lenses. Basically, if you've ever used a new camera and you've noticed that your peripheral illumination and corrections don't work, well, that should hopefully fix it. So if you're using a brand new camera or brand new lens and currently there isn't a profile corrections or peripheral illumination activated and you have to do it manually, well, that should be fixed as well. But that's basically it. It's not much, this particular update, but there are some worthwhile notes which we've included in this video. So overall, what do I think of this update? Well, in my opinion, I find it's maybe a little bit underwhelming, especially when we compare it to 2023. That was a decent upgrade. We've got a few new features, like for example, point color and lens blur, which are two tools that I use fairly regularly. Point color, I use almost every single day, and I really love that feature. And lens blur, I actually use more often than not. I actually quite like it. I don't use it in every single edit, but it's definitely helpful if I want to increase my depth of field in my photo. Where this year, it just feels like they've added a button to a pre-existing tool which has now been added to the full version of Lightroom. So in my opinion, I do find it a little bit underwhelming, which actually kind of sums up 2024 in general. I thought the latest iPhone was a little bit underwhelming. I thought a few camera updates this year were a little bit underwhelming, and well, this update for Lightroom is kind of the same. But of course, write down in the comments below what you think of this particular update. Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Did you watch Adobe Max? Make sure to go ahead and write it down in the comments below. I've been James for Photo Fever, and I'll catch you guys next time.